My name's Catharine and I'm the Science and Policy Manager at Deer Industry New Zealand. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to report back to you today on a major piece of levy-funded research you've been eagerly anticipating relating to the quality of premium New Zealand velvet. We know that you velvet producers are actively pursuing ways to improve how you farm your stags for health, welfare and productivity reasons. Barnes, which stands for Velvet Antler Research New Zealand, wanted to find out whether your farm system improvements could change the quality and composition of New Zealand velvet since the last composition survey in 1991. In this study, Barnes randomly took antlers from 6 farms across both islands, took notes on the farming systems, the parentage of the herd, the time of cutting since button drop. But I'm pleased to reveal that the results are strikingly positive. Let's have a look. Barnes recorded a massive improvement in the quality of your antlers, with blue being values from 1991 and orange being today's velvet. We can see that the bioactive organic fraction of the components, that's lipid and protein, is significantly greater now than in 1991. Protein's gone up by 25% and lipid by 4%. The inactive ash portion, that's the portion we don't want, is decreased by 10%, step in the right direction. On average, the upper portion of our current antlers now contains more bioactive substances than were found in the whole antler in 1991. Let's look at some of the findings in more detail. Let's look at size. If you were velveting back in 1991, your main crop would have looked a lot like the stick on the left. You're now likely to be producing sticks like that on the right, which is a modern Super A grade specimen. Thinking only about the upper portion of the bean, that's the part indicated with a green bracket, we found that that proportion made up 38% of the whole stick weight in 1991, but that same portion now makes up almost 48% of the stick's mass. Turning now to quality rather than weight, we found that the bioactive components we mentioned before, lipids and protein, are increasing their distribution towards that upper part of the antler. Protein especially has increased massively in that upper part, up from 58.1% in 1991 to 71.2% of the upper portion today. All right, now some of you may be wondering how consistent production is between different operations. So, Barnes investigated composition across different deer, different farms, and different farming systems. Broadly speaking, across the whole stick, the composition of red deer antlers from the 6 farms was similar. Although if we broke the sticks down into different sections, which we did do, there were significant differences between farms in the levels of some components in those sections. Consistency of production is a good thing for our customers in terms of reproducibility between batches when making extracts from whole sticks. Nevertheless, there is potential for a manufacturer to be more sophisticated in terms of matching individual farms to particular products if it really wanted to make a particular product from a particular section. Genetics and breed didn't have much influence on quality, and in the one farm we studied that had used PKE in the diet, it didn't have an effect. We wouldn't recommend using PKE as a standard production input, but this very preliminary investigation nevertheless gives comfort to our producers under severe feed pressure from the effects of drought this year. Now let's look at whether you've nailed the cutting date. Yes, you have. Our velvet producer's intuition about the right time to cut velvet perfectly matches the optimum cutting time in terms of the highest composition of bioactives. So this slide shows the Velvet Activity Index, VAI, of different portions of the antler, which is assessed by the amount of lipid and low molecular weight protein measured over time, taken from sticks harvested at the days from button drop matching Super A grade, which are the blue values, 7 days later, the red values. Sticks harvested a fortnight later, the green values. Velvet Activity Index score is highest in the tip, followed by the upper portion and tray tines, as you may expect. But looking at the downward shift in scores from blue through red, then green, the Velvet Activity Index decreases with cutting, delayed by a week and then another week, except in the tip, which is always good, even if overgrown. So let's recap on the learnings from this study. First, the work our velvet producers have put into their farming systems is continually improving velvet quality. Second, there's high consistency in velvet quality between deer and velvet farms. So even in mixed consignments, our velvet exporters can be confident in providing a high degree of consistency in quality to their customers. Third, our industry knows the composition of what it's producing, and that is a premium quality product with significant proportions of bioactive components. So I'll now hand over to Ag Research's Chief Velvet Scientist who conducted this study, Dr. Stephen Haynes, who can give insights into more of the detail, such as amino acid composition, and my DINS colleagues, Rhys Griffiths, our Marketing Manager, and Dr. Tony Pearce, our Producer Manager. Feel free to raise your questions by pressing the Ask button. Thanks very much for joining me today.
And joining us now on the line is Dr. Stephen Haynes, leading New Zealand expert in velvet research, as well as known to many of you, velvet marketing manager for Deer Industry New Zealand, Rhys Griffiths, and producer manager, Tony Pearce. Welcome, gentlemen, to this innovative Deer Industry New Zealand conference following Catharine Sayer's presentation there. Now, I'm just going to kick it off with 3 questions, one to each of you, whilst our audience gets some of the questions from Catharine's presentation written in the YouTube chats or, of course, the Facebook underneath to you specifically. If you are asking a question, if you would like to just please put who you would like me to ask the question to, it makes it a bit more clean and tidy. Now, Stephen, firstly, I was just wanting to know, back in 1991 was the last composition and analysis was done, and there was a comparison done with Chinese and Russian velvet. Was it done this time?
Unfortunately, this time we haven't been able to do it so far. The costs have gone up a lot in the last 20 odd years. So when we budgeted for this experiment, we could only look at New Zealand antlers in the first pass. We have plans to look at Chinese antlers. Getting those antlers out of China and into New Zealand is actually proving a wee bit of a mission, so we're a bit delayed on that project, unfortunately. And the Russian antlers really would be a very difficult proposition at the moment, so we don't have any immediate plans to look at those, but the comparison would be very interesting again. And as I say, we hope to look at Chinese antlers very soon.
Rhys, this information is great, but how is it used in the marketplace?
Thanks for that. And actually, if I could just add to what Dr. Haynes was saying, I mean, it's great to have that compositional or comparative compositional analysis, but really it's an awesome thing for us to be able to go to the companies, particularly those in South Korea that we partner closely with, and say, hey, you know what, our composition, our own New Zealand velvet has increased in its quality significantly over the last 40 years. What farmers are doing really matters. We've seen amino acids, for example, increase significantly, 25% and what have you. So it's a great way for us to shape our velvet, New Zealand velvet brand, and say, and really demonstrate that we're continuing to improve our quality. Actually, with the last lot of research we did, which was on some healthy brain function work, we did up a little flyer to give out to the respective big food companies, and it gives them confidence about the New Zealand velvet that they're using. So it's our intention to do the same with this compositional work as well. So we'll be certainly using it from a marketing perspective.
Tony, listening there to Catharine Sayer's presentation, what are some of those take-home messages that deer farmers watching and listening on demand should be taking away?
I think there's two really, and that's the amazing power of selection on good style and conformation and genetics that has underpinned that improvement. And we've seen that in the national competition, how the weights have all just shot up, but the quality and that vindication of that, the grading chart, that's the second point, the grading chart that's been developed is a very good chart, and that composition analysis would show that the genetic gain's been captured and the quality of the velvet has been maintained throughout.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, of course, as we said, this is an interactive session as well. And sorry, Tony, to cut you off there. Did you say that you were finished?
That's all right.
My apologies. This is an interactive conference as well, so make sure that you've got any questions for these three gentlemen and make sure you get them in across, of course, YouTube and Facebook. So, Stephen, where to from here?
The next thing, as I said earlier, really is to try and complete the comparison with Chinese velvet. I'd be really interested to see whether they've made similar gains. I have an opinion on that which I won't voice, but I really want to see how their antler in our current year compare. When we looked at them in 1991, the New Zealand antlers at that time compared very favourably, and I have seen some papers where comparisons have been made over the past 15 or so years, and again New Zealand antlers have consistently come out looking very good against the Chinese antlers. I would like to see how good that comparison is today.
And I think this is directed at you as well. Stephen is from your chair of the Dinsmore and Walker. Can the diet of the stags influence the quality of the velvet? Thinking about brassicas, crops, grains, maize, silage, as well as PKE.
There certainly would be indications in the literature that nutrition of the stags can have an influence, and we would suspect that some more extreme diets would certainly do so. To really investigate that, we would need to do a proper controlled nutrition study. We attempted to have a wee look at the use of PKE as a primary feed input in this study, but we recognise that since we're only doing that on one single farm and didn't control the nutrition, it really wasn't a true comparison of the effects of nutrition. So we would really need to look at the diet in a lot more detail. I wouldn't expect, to be honest, huge differences apart from perhaps more extreme sort of diets, but what we've seen so far doesn't say that we should see massive changes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us off the back of Catharine Sayer's presentation there.